Yeah, good morning all. We are back with our classes on organic chemistry. I know that you are having a chemistry class in the evening at 7. Ma'am is even posting the notes. If you miss out, kindly try to adjust with ma'am. And then now we are back with our second chapter in book 2, which is alcohol, phenols and ether. Which is alcohol, phenols and ether. As suggested in my previous lecture, I had told you that you are supposed to solve the exercise questions behind the textbook. You are supposed to do the conversions, and I even told that please message in the group if you do not get any answers on conversion. As there were no questions, no answers, no doubts, I consider that you have understood haloalkanes and haloarenes. Now we move on to the next chapter, which is alcohol, phenols and ethers. It is a very big chapter of the second book. After this, we have another big chapter, which is aldehyde, ketones and carboxylic acid. These two are interrelated chapters. So if you don't understand alcohol, phenols and ethers, understanding aldehyde ketones will become a major issue. I would always suggest, my classes are hardly there for 30 to 35 minutes. If you do not read it every day, it is going to be a big problem. So make sure that you put efforts to read every day. Now, first of all, we will discuss what is an alcohol, what is phenol and what is ether. Alcohols, we know, have a functional group what? OH. Alcohols are generally represented as ROH. They have a general formula CnH2n plus 1 OH. In IUPAC, alcohols are called as what? Alkanol. The suffix added is what? OH. So alcohols basically are represented as ROH. General formula CnH2n plus 1 OH, and it is represented as what? Alkanol. Let us talk about, this was what alcohol? Aliphatic alcohol or open chain alcohol. When I talk about a closed chain alcohol or an aromatic alcohol, the first parent aromatic alcohol which comes to mind is C6H5OH. This C6H5OH is called as phenol. It is called as what? Phenol, and it is also known as common name of phenol is what? Carbolic acid. This shows that phenols are what in nature? Acidic in nature. And phenol is the common name, as well as you can call it, even in IUPAC, because of its maximum usage, it is called as phenol. Or its IUPAC name is what? Hydroxybenzene. Phenol is also called as what? Hydroxybenzene. Now, regarding ether. Ethers are, when I replace from the alcohol the H, and I replace the H with an alkyl group. So I get what? ROR. So this ROR is called as ether. Its IUPAC name is what? Its IUPAC name is alkoxy alkane. What is the IUPAC name of ether? The IUPAC name of ether is alkoxy alkane. So this is the introduction of the chapter alcohol, phenols and ethers. We have to study about alcohols or alkanols, which are aliphatic alcohols. We have to talk about aromatic alcohols, which is phenol, having the formula C6H5OH. It is also commonly called as what acid? Carbolic acid, which shows phenols are what in nature? Acidic in nature. Ethers, if I remove from ROH the H and add what? R, I get what? Ether. Ethers are also said to be the alkyl derivative of water. Andre H2 remove ಮಾಡಿದ ಏನು ಆಡ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು? 2 R. So the dialkyl derivative of water is called as what? Ether. alkoxyalkane. So now we have studied the introduction of alcohol, phenol and ether. Alcohols are named as alkanols, phenols are named as phenol, or they are called as what? Hydroxybenzene. Ethers are named as what? Alkoxyalkane. Now we will talk about classification of alcohols, phenols and ethers. So the first part is like classification of alcohols. So we will talk about what? Classification of alcohols. First classification based on the number of OH group present. Okay, so the first classification, now haloalkanes we studied. First classification was what? Based on the number of halogen atom present. If it was one halogen atom, it was called monohalogen derivative. Two halogen atoms, we studied two types, vicinal dihalides and geminal dihalide. Geminal means it is attached to the same carbon atom, and vicinal means attached to two different carbon atoms. And then we studied what? Trihalide or trihalogens compounds, and then we studied polyhalogen compound. Our trihalogen compounds were chloroform, bromoform, iodoform, and now we will study the same thing with OH group. See, if it has one OH group attached to it, it is called as monohydric alcohol. If it has one OH group attached to it, it is called as what alcohol? Monohydric alcohol. Example, you can write CH3OH, C2H5OH, C3H7OH. It all has got what? One OH group. Right along, if I have two OH group, it is called what? Dihydric alcohol. Dihydric alcohols are commonly called as glycol. It is IUPAC, it is called as alkandiol. IUPAC they are called as what? They are called as alkandiol. Examples of alkandiol, see CH2OH and CH2OH. Now please understand here one thing. In any alcohols, you should never add two OH group to the same carbon atom. This is our base. You should always remember that two OH groups should never be attached to the same carbon atom. This is because when two OH groups are attached to the same carbon atom, according to what theory? VSEPR theory, there is lone pair repulsion, and this entire molecule becomes unstable and immediately loses what molecule? Water molecule. So the first rule in dihydric alcohol is the two OH groups should never be attached to the same carbon atom. If it is attached to the same carbon atom, the molecule is unstable and it loses what? A molecule of water. Now our example here is CH2OH, CH2OH. This is the example of what alcohol? Dihydric alcohol. Name of the compound, common name, ethylene glycol, or sold under the name as glycol. Now let us understand its IUPAC name. I am writing it here, CH2OH, CH2OH. What is its IUPAC name? 1 and 2. So it is called ethane 1,2 diol. So ethane diol, or 1,2 ethane diol, or ethane 1,2 diol is the IUPAC name. It is sold under the commercial name of glycol. So all dihydric alcohols are commonly called as what? Glycol. The common name, ethylene glycol. The IUPAC name, ethane 1,2 diol. Now let us talk about the third example, where there are how many OH groups present? 3 OH groups present. When there are trihydric alcohol. Trihydric alcohol example. Again, what should be the logic? All three OH should be attached to three different carbon atoms. There is no vicinal logic. There is all vicinal logic. There is no geminal logic in alcohols. So you will have CH2OH, CHOH and CH2OH. Common name glycerol. When it is dissolved in water, it is called as what? Glycerine. Glycerine is also called as what? Tear. Artificial tear. They put glycerine in ice to cry. So it is glycerol. Its aqueous solution mixed with water is called glycerine. It is also called as what? Tear? Artificial tear. Now in IUPAC, this will be called as what? Alkane triol. This will be called as what? Alkane triol. So the name of this compound 1, 2, 3. So this will be called as propane 1, 2, 3 triol. So this is trihydric alcohol. If there are more than 4 OH group, or if there are more than 3 OH group, or rather more than 3, then it is called as polyhydric alcohol. It is called as what? Polyhydric alcohol. Polyhydric alcohol, the most common polyhydric alcohol which we use is commonly called as sorbitol. Sorbitol is the most common example of a polyhydric alcohol. Its formula is C6H14O6. I am telling you the molecular formula. It is what? C6H14O6. So let us write C3, 4, 5, 6. What have we studied till now? That each carbon should have its own OH group. So we will write OH, 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 OH and OH. Correct? And everywhere satisfy it with hydrogen atom. And you see, if you satisfy the formula C6H14O6, let us count the number of H. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Okay? Oxygen is 6, carbon is also 6. So the most common example of a polyhydric alcohol is sorbitol. What is the formula of sorbitol? C6H14O6. So classification of alcohol clear. The first part, it says that if there is presence of one OH group, it is called monohydric alcohol. If it is two OH group, it is called in IUPAC as alkanol. If there are two OH groups, it is called dihydric alcohol, and in IUPAC it is called as alkane triol. If there are three OH group, trihydric alcohol, alkane triol. And if there are four OH group, it is called as what? Polyhydric alcohol. Or more than 4, or 4 and more than 4 is called as polyhydric alcohol. The most common polyhydric alcohol is called sorbitol. Trihydric alcohol is glycerol or propane 1,2,3 triol. Its aqueous solution is called glycerine or artificial tear. What is the logic we derive from all the number of OH group? Please write. More the number of OH group, more is the viscosity and more sweeter is the alcohol. More the number of OH group, more the number of OH group, more sweeter is the alcohol and more viscous is the alcohol. More sweeter is the alcohol and more viscous is the alcohol. Okay, so we are classifying first aliphatic alcohols. So we classified first them into monohydric, dihydric and trihydric alcohol. Now we will talk about the first part, the phenol alcohols. Let us understand. One second. I'll finish off first aliphatic alcohols. So please write second classification or class based on alkyl group. Let us finish off first with aliphatic alcohol so that we don't have confusion. So classification based on alkyl group. Andre yella also a classification of what alcohol? Monohydric alcohols. There will be only how many OH groups? One OH group. But alkyl groups will keep on increasing. So the first one was classification based on OH group, and now we have classification based on alkyl group. That means here the number of OH group will be 1. So these can be also said to be the classification of what alcohol? Monohydric alcohols. So let us write first. See, if there is only one alkyl group attached to the carbon to which OH is attached, it is called as what group? Primary alcohol. If there are two alkyl groups attached to the carbon to which OH is attached, it is called what alcohol? Secondary alcohol. If I have three alkyl groups attached to the carbon to which OH is attached, it is called what group? Tertiary alcoholic group. Is it clear? So primary alcohol ends with what?
CH2.
Ends with CH2OH. Secondary alcohol ends with CHOH. Tertiary alcohol ends with COH. So this part should be very clear, because when you write CET or other competitive exams, they will ask you to identify whether the carbon is or whether the alkyl group is primary, secondary or tertiary. Okay? So basically we need to find out if the carbon to which OH is attached is having only one alkyl group, then it is what group? Primary alcoholic group. If it has two alkyl groups, it is called a secondary alcohol, and if it has three alkyl groups, it is called tertiary alcohol. So we will write examples of each and even names of each. So examples of primary, secondary and tertiary alcohol. The primary alcohol, let us write CH3, CH2OH. This is the example of primary alcohol. In secondary alcohol, I will substitute this as CH3, CH3. Name of compound, it becomes what? 1, 2, 3 isopropyl alcohol, or you can even write this as, this becomes my main chain. So what this becomes my main chain means, this becomes my main chain rather. So what will be the compound? It is called as propane to all. It will be called as propane to all. This is what? Secondary alcohol. 1, 2, 3. So it is called as what? Propane to all. Now for tertiary alcohol, let us name this as all are as CH3. So I will name it as 1, 2, 3. So name of the compound becomes what? 2-methyl and butane to all. So 2-methyl butane to all is an example of tertiary alcohol. So depending on the alkyl group, monohydric alcohols are classified as primary alcohol, secondary alcohol and tertiary alcohol. Primary alcohol, 1 alkyl group, secondary alcohol, 2 alkyl group, tertiary alcohol, 3 alkyl group. Primary alcohol ends with CH2OH, secondary with CHOH, tertiary with COH. Now let us go and see allylic alcohol. Please write based on alkyl group, the carbon here is what hybridized? sp3 hybridized. Please write in your notebook, when you say based on alkyl group, we are only talking about carbon to which OH is attached should be what hybridized? sp3 hybridized. Now the second part of this was the first part. Now the second part of it is called as what alcohol? This is double bond. So this is CH2, CH. This will be what? CH2, OH. So this is an example of what alcohol? Allyl alcohol. This allyl alcohol can also become what? Primary, because it is ending with CH2OH. Now in this allyl alcohol, when I write CH2, double bond CH, and I have C, I add here what? One more alkyl group, and I add here one H. So this becomes what? Secondary allyl alcohol. And if I add to this only, I am writing the next one, CH2 double bond CH, C, CH3, CH3 and OH. This becomes what? Tertiary alkyl group. So this is how the example basically of allyl alcohol or allyl alcohol. What is an allyl carbon? A carbon which is sp3 hybridized, which is attached to an sp2 carbon. But the functional group is attached to what carbon? sp3 hybridized carbon. So this is our second classification of aliphatic alcohol. Now we will talk about benzylic alcohol. The third one we will talk about is benzylic alcohol. Benzylic alcohol. Now when we talk about benzylic alcohol, here also the carbon to which OH is attached, it should be what? sp3 hybridized. This can also be what? Primary, secondary and tertiary. So let us understand, this is my benzene, to which I attach what? CH3. This becomes what? Toluene. This carbon is what hybridized? sp3 hybridized. Remove one H and add one OH. So I get what compound? C6H5, CH2OH. This is what? Primary benzylic alcohol. Now remove from this one H and add one alkyl group. So I get what? C6H5, C, CH3, H and OH. This will be called as what? This will be called secondary benzylic alcohol. And now I am removing one more H and adding one more R. So now this becomes what? C6H5, C, CH3, CH3, OH. This will be called as what? Tertiary alcohol. So these are second classification of alcohol based on alkyl group, where we have the carbon which is what hybridized? sp3 hybridized. First was primary, secondary and tertiary alcohol. Second was what alcohol? Allylic alcohol, where the carbon to which OH is attached is sp3 hybridized, but it is attached to what carbon atom? An sp2 hybridized carbon. Benzylic alcohol derived from methyl benzene or toluene, where you remove one H and add OH. This can also be primary, secondary and tertiary. So in general, if you are talking about primary, secondary and tertiary carbon or alcohol, an alcohol which ends with CH2OH, primary alcohol, an alcohol which ends with COH, secondary alcohol, COH, tertiary alcohol, and an alcohol which ends with CHOH, secondary alcohol. Now the third classification of alcohol based on the carbon which is sp2 hybridized. Now our third classification is, it is based on the carbon which is what hybridized? sp2 hybridized, to which what is attached? To which OH is attached. To which OH is attached. So the first example of this is what alcohol? Vinyl alcohol. Phenol also has got a carbon, which suppose I add an OH here. This carbon has got what? Double bond. So this carbon also is what hybridized? sp2 hybridized. Clear? So this is what is the classification of alcohol. Classification of alcohols is basically done on the number of OH group: monohydric, dihydric, trihydric and polyhydric. Monohydric called as alkanol, dihydric called as alkane diol, trihydric called as alkane triol, polyhydric example was what? Sorbitol. We wrote 6 carbon atom with 6 OH group, and then you can substitute with H. Then we did classification based on alkyl group or on the basis of hybridization of the carbon atom to which OH is attached. If it is an sp3 hybridized carbon, we have primary, secondary and tertiary alcohol, allyl alcohol, which again can be primary, secondary and tertiary, benzylic alcohol, which can again be primary, secondary and tertiary. If the carbon is sp2 hybridized, then you have vinyl alcohol and phenol. Phenol is also called as what acid? Carbolic acid. Now write ethers. Write heading ethers. Okay, when we talk about ethers, ethers are what? ROR. They are named as what? Alkoxy-alkane. They are classified into 2 types. You will have simple ethers and mixed ethers. Simple ether and mixed ether. Simple ether means if both the alkyl groups are same, it is called as what? Simple ether. If one of the alkyl group is different, it is called as what ether? Mixed ether. In naming of ether, always remember smaller alkyl group. This is what? Mixed ether. Simple ether में तो दोनों alkyl group will be same. So there is no smaller or larger alkyl group. But when you are naming a mixed ether, smaller alkyl group always becomes alkoxy, and the larger alkyl group is the parent. Is the parent chain. Is it clear what we are talking about? We basically say that this is how to name. Let us understand in case of ethers. If I write CH3OCH3, common name ಏನು? Common name ಏನು? 2-methyl. So it is called as what? Dimethyl ether. What is IUPAC name? Methoxymethane. But if I make this as C2H5OCH3, then it becomes what? Common name ethyl methyl ether. IUPAC name becomes methoxymethane. Smaller alkyl group becomes alkoxy and larger alkyl group becomes the parent chain. If I have C2H5OC2H5, common name dimethyl ether. IUPAC name ethoxyethane. This ethoxyethane is commercially sold under the name ether. When I go and say alcohol, I get what? Ethanol. When I say ether, I always get what? Diethyl ether. So when anybody talks as a layman about ether, we always need what? Ethoxyethane or diethyl ether. Now let us write C3H7OC2H5. Name of the compound? Ethyl propyl ether. It is what ether? Mixed ether. This was what ether? Simple ether. What will be its IUPAC name? Ethoxypropane. Understood naming of ethers? So naming of ethers and classification of ether is very simple. Ethers are ROR. They are